Hi, Mark.
Hi, Marina.
We are here to talk about Barbara. Can you tell us how you met her?
I think I met her probably at a dance conference in probably the 1980s, probably in the United States. I'm sure I heard her give a paper on Renaissance dance and improvisation because I knew that that was one of her interests. And I was immediately drawn to that idea. Then I met her other times after that in Europe, I think in Italy. I got to know her a little better. I don't remember exactly when. It must have been at a conference too, somewhere in Italy. And I got to know that she was from New York, that she was Jewish, the same background as my background, and very, very friendly, and just felt very familiar as a person. And she was a modern dancer, as I was. So all those things we shared in common. So she was very warm and funny and lovely all the time. And I remember particularly sitting in a backseat of a car and she was in the front and we were talking. I just, it's a little vague as to where that was, but I think it was maybe in Bologna, or I'm not sure. So that was meeting her on different occasions. I remember also asking her for film of some of her reconstructions that I could use in my teaching at the point that I was in California at Santa Cruz. And she did give me things that so I learned more about how she worked. I did invite her to the University of California, Santa Cruz, to stage some dances. And I found the program, it was in 2000. It was an evening length work, and I had several people as well as myself, but she did two pieces. One was Tessara, which was Domenico da Piacenza. It was a piece for 6 dancers. It was very, very lovely. And then she also did a piece for 3 women that was Lorenzo de Medici, I think, choreography.
Venus.
Yes, she did Venus. It was beautiful with 3 lovely dancers I had. So I had her there and I watched her teach it, and I have film of those pieces too, a video of those pieces. Yes, Venus, exactly. Lorenzo de Medici around 1466, reconstructed by Barbara Sparti. Yeah. It's in there somewhere.
It's very interesting. Maybe
yeah.
you can send a scan
Sure.
of that.
Sure, I would love
be interesting for the archives.
Absolutely.
We are trying to put together as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So that was lovely exchange. And then I had other exchanges with her. I loved her very much because, not only because of who she was, but because she was very different from all the other dance reconstructors of that era, of the starting in the 80s when I became interested in this material. But my position when I wrote my dissertation was, as you know, not the traditional historical method, but more somewhat historical, theoretical, aesthetic theory. And many of the people engaged at that time didn't like it. People, I won't say the names, but we all know the famous reconstructor names of that period. And they were quite, actually very, very hostile to me. Barbara Sparti was the only one who was not. And she knew that whole group, of course. So, but of course she was in Italy, so she wasn't as directly engaged with them, but she could talk their language. She was one of them, but she was completely different because she believed in improvisation. She knew there was more going on than what is in the text. That was kind of my thinking too. I wanted to move around it, not to just reconstruct it. So she was very empathetic to that. And I think I believe that she did recommend me to Klaus Abromeit to perform at the Berlin Werkstatt Festival, a piece I had done, which was very experimental, Le Marbre Tremble, the one I did later with Fabienne. The original version was done in Berlin, and I think he invited me and Christine Bell and three of us did different kinds of Baroque performance. But I think it was Barbara that said to him, "You should invite Mark." So that was incredibly generous and wonderful of her. And then the other thing that was very important was later in the 90s, I was doing more early music performance in the Bay Area because I was living in San Francisco. And a number of different things. One was we did the Monteverdi dramatic madrigals. We did Combattimento and Ballo dell'Ingrate. Ballo dell'Ingrate. I always forget. Ballo dell'Ingrate, with a group called Magnificat, which was an early music group. And I got in touch with her and I said, "Barbara, do you think I can do this? I mean, do you know if there are any sources for this?" And she said, "There are no sources. You can do whatever you want." Which this one, do whatever you want. Which is very freeing, you know, because it was extraordinary. I mean, those dramatic madrigals are unbelievable. You know, they have their own structure if you understand how to read them. And they're very un-Aristotelian and they're extremely specific in terms of how they work, if you understand that. And I think I did too. I was pleased with what I did there. So anyway, again, she was always an inspiration and always like supporting me, and that's what I remember. I didn't spend a great deal of time with her, and you know, overall, but she was a very strong presence in my life, I'd say.
And can you remember a particular project or moment in which you were together, or part of this invitation to?
Yes, that was the time that we mostly were actually working together. I mean, the kind of what she was doing came across very easily to the students, so I didn't need to intervene. Sometimes I had Christine Bell also was there, and she was teaching them a caractère de la danse, which came out very nicely, but it was very hard for them because they hadn't really worked with that kind of movement. So I needed to intervene to explain in a more kind of Laban way what the body was, what they had to look for. But with Barbara, I didn't have to do anything because she knew exactly how to communicate it and the kind of movement it was too. I mean, it was beautifully done. I didn't need to help at all. I just watched. And so that's a very lovely memory. I don't remember too much more about it because it was a big production. There were actually 4 choreographers and we were doing, it was a very interesting piece. I'll send you the program. And so I was coordinating a lot, but so I don't, she did give a talk at Santa Cruz also. Unfortunately, I missed that. I was feeling ill, so a little bit lost the end of her visit, but yeah, I guess it could have been more engaged with her if it wasn't such a big project. But I was glad she came, and it was fantastic that she came and did that.
So now we are trying to play together with this little play. I am giving you some letters, and you are giving me some concepts or ideas or images starting from the letters, which are the first letter of the name and the letters of the surname of Barbara Sparti. So B.
I think of it almost from the English perspective as big, expansive. And I have to say, I've always had a very strong association with her last name, which to me, again, with an English association, makes me think of spark, like light and flame.
Mm.
Because it is Sparti and not spark, but there's that SPAR in English suggests that kind of combustion. And I always thought of her as this kind of elfin character with this energy, this kind of explosive energy, but in a very good sense, explosive, not in any way destructive, but just little sparks appearing everywhere. That's my association.
So that's what about S then?
What about us? I don't know. S sensation again, or the kind of explosive of the SP in English, the spa, spa. So, and then arte,
Ah.
explosion of art.
Une explosion artistique. Barbara.
Oui,
Mm.
une énergétique explosive, mais oui.
Okay, so we keep this image of her, and maybe to finish, do you want to say something about her writings or theoretical work?
Yeah, I was also going over her writings recently when I republished my dissertation, Dancing Body, because I wrote something on her work in relation to Margaret McGowan and also Rudolf Cholipa. So I was reading her intensely last summer, actually, to write that preface. Yeah, I mean, obviously she did really important archival work in Italy, which was very important that she did that. And I know she was deeply engaged in her research as well as the reconstruction. I was a little, the only thing I was a little surprised at was that she sort of downplayed the humanist aspect of Italian Renaissance dance and said it was more about social climbing, and which I'm sure it was, but she didn't see the humanist connection of dance in the Renaissance to be as edifying as it usually is thought to be, which I thought was interesting. I wasn't sure. I'm sure she had strong evidence for that. It's the reason she said it. So, I mean, I will continue to read her work because I think it's very serious scholarly work. And I think it's amazing to have an artist who also can do that, because she was an artist. So it remained, luckily it remained, we have this work to continue to explore.
So thank you very much, Mark. Do you want to say something else to conclude, or is it okay?
No, I'm just very pleased to think about Barbara and share this with you and with everyone else. I'm sure it will be a beautiful occasion to hear her impact on people.
Thank you very much.
Barbara Sparti. Very grateful to her. That's
Thank you very much.